So thank you everybody for coming, and this is an exciting new topic area that I'm focusing on because some of the other ones that I've done were on food safety culture and on training, 3 ways to make your training stick, and those kinds of topics. They were along the same lines as people skills, but this one particularly, what I want to focus on is I want to focus on a specific type of skill that may help you in improving your organizational culture related to food safety. So I'll give you a little bit about my background. So I started off in food science, and I have a number of degrees in food science and a PhD in food safety management from the University of Guelph. I started my career at Gay Leaf Foods, where I worked in the research lab. I worked at Kraft Foods as a sanitation supervisor. I taught at Kemphill College of Agricultural Technology, and then I had a career in dairy inspection and farm inspection with the Ontario Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. And then I shifted my career into organizational development. It was actually extension. So those of you in the United States will understand the extension process. So I was in rural extension, and my focus in my rural extension field was working with 4-H clubs and agricultural community, and working in leadership and organization development. And then my job shifted, and I got back into the food science and food safety side of things. I returned to the University of Guelph to do my master's in food safety and quality assurance and a PhD in food safety management. And since then, I've taught at the university, and I worked at Food Banks Canada, and their food safety, basically their outsourced food safety consultant. And I've got my own company, Breedaball and Associates, where I work with people helping companies improve their food safety performance. So the other kinds of things that I do is I've got some social, I guess they call it social responsibility. This is really the areas that I like to volunteer my time in. So I'm volunteering as chair of the Food Safety Education Professional Development Group at the International Association for Food Protection. And I'm also a member of the Food Safety Culture Science Group, which has the name SALIS. And we have, there have been a number of us, there's about a dozen of us who are international experts in food safety culture. And we've supported the GFSI Food Safety Culture Work Group. And I was specifically in helping the work group with communications with the work that they were doing. And that there's some work that they've done, and they're moving forward with food safety culture assistance at the GFSI level. So we're starting to see more things happening in the Global Food Safety Initiative projects and with the schemes that are in that, to have more of a focus on management commitment and really what that is in food safety culture. And so getting into the topic of the webinar, I wanted to start by talking about a journal article that I found about total quality management and how total quality management is influenced by the employee's involvement. It's a case study, so it's N equals 1, but they've in other research it's been clear that the engagement of employees makes a difference in the implementation of whatever system it has, whether it's total quality management, whether it's occupational health and safety, whether it's quality initiative, whether it's food safety. And so what I've highlighted in this is that this case study identified that employee involvement was the major focus of the company when TQM was first implemented with this particular company in this case study. However, when the company changed the focus a little bit and started going outward focused, didn't focus so much on the employees within the company, things changed. And they found that lack of ongoing employee involvement at the shop floor level was identified as the major reason for TQM not being sustainable within this organization. And so the reason I wanted to bring this out is because this comes back to the whole thing about employee engagement and involving people, and how that's going to make the difference in people's commitment to whatever the organization wants to focus on. In this case, it happened to be TQM, and what we're going to be talking about today is food safety and food safety and food quality assurance. And as in Europe talks about food, the quality assurance of food, and includes food safety in that. So the focus of this webinar is on the people side of food safety, and how we get the employees' involvement, and how we can actually engage employees. So find the new slides here. So I wanted to come back to one of the
Britta, can I just butt in?
Yes.
Do you still want to run that poll? Because I'm back now.
Oh yes, the poll is a little bit later.
Okay.
Yes, I've got that just a couple of slides from now.
No problem.
There's a page, Simon. There's a page that will come up. It'll show the poll.
Okay.
So what I wanted to bring to this is the work that I did for my PhD, and you may not be able to see the words. It's not so important that you see that. So I'm on the, I don't know if you can see my arrow, the arrow on my screen. So the top left-hand corner is management commitment to food safety. People say management commitment to food safety is so important, and if we don't have that, then we're not going to have food safety behavior. And that is true. But this research that I did shows that work unit commitment to food safety, that's at the bottom circle in the middle, work unit commitment to food safety is what predicts worker food safety, which is the circle on the right. So that the single arrow that goes to the circle on the right is what really indicates what has to be in place. If we have management commitment and we don't have work unit commitment to food safety, then we're not going to get food safety behavior, because work unit commitment to food safety is really the predicting factor for employee behavior. And so it's important that we have things at the work unit level. And that's essentially what, going back to this particular slide, it says that the lack of ongoing employee involvement at the shop floor level was identified as a major reason for non-sustainability of the TQM in the organization. And even though this was a case study in N equals 1, and we're not supposed to be extrapolating from N equals 1 in a case study, one could hazard a guess that TQM could be food safety. And then I want to go on to some other work, and this has been talked about in other presentations that I've given and other people have given. The theory of planned behavior is a good model to use as a way to show how people will, what influences what people actually do, what influences people's behavior. And the attitudes towards the behavior and the subjective norms are the ones that I'm going to talk about today, because that's what we want to focus on. Those things influence behavioral intention, and directly or indirectly influence self-reported behavior. And when we're talking about employee engagement and employee involvement in things, really those are the kinds of things that will strongly influence the attitude toward behavior and the subjective norms, or the social peer pressure kinds of things that are happening in the organization. So here's the poll, Simon. So Simon's going to put up a poll, and we're going to ask you, how confident then, based on that little bit of information that we've provided just at the front of this presentation, how confident are you in your ability to support engagement and commitment to food safety in your organization?
Okay, I've set the poll live in the sidebar. So you've got 1 to 10, 1 being not confident at all, to 10 being extremely confident. Can you see that in the sidebar, Britta, under the polls
Yes, I can see the polls.
tab?
Yes.
Yeah. So we sort of getting a 33%, around 8 out of 10.
Oh, okay. So we get okay. That's
7,
pretty
8
good.
out of
Eh? Yeah.
10, yeah.
7 out of
Al-
10, 8 out of 10. All right. 6,
Although,
5. Okay, 11. Okay.
yeah, so nobody extremely, well, nobody not confident at all,
Oh, well,
more at the,
yeah,
yeah.
that's good. Yeah. So that's good. We've got a little bit of a little bit of a bell curve happening here with the 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
Hmm.
and 10. Yeah. That's great. So, well, if you're pretty confident, then that's we want to sort of just jot down these numbers here. I'm just going to jot down the numbers because we want to compare at the end. 28, 25, 10, 10, 8 and 10. 8 and 10, 9. There we go. There we go. 9, 10. There we go. I got that. So that's good. Just wanted to just see how things were going with that, and we've got back to the slides. This worked nicely here, Simon. I was a bit concerned that we might have lost the slides, but all is well. So we've got an idea then. So the majority of you are pretty confident that you'll be able to support and engage people in support the engagement and commitment of food safety in your organizations. So that's excellent. That's a really good place to start. And so what we may be able to do is to hopefully, with some of the information that I've got for you today, be able to influence that a little bit. No guarantees, but it would always be nice if that would be the case. What I want to do now is I want to give you an example of what Google did, because Google was really interested in finding out what was it that made their teams really effective. And they did a study that let me just back up just to put it into the context again. So what it is we're looking at commitment and engagement and involvement, and how that influences people in organizations to move forward on projects. As I explained before, the one article was about TQM, and in Google, it's really about the projects that they're working on. So whatever the projects, Google wanted to find out what was the secret sauce that made the teams that they had, the project work teams, so the work units that they had in there, what was it that made the really effective work teams effective and the other work teams not so effective? And so they looked at a whole bunch of other things. So starting in 2012, there was a Project Aristotle. And they had statisticians, organizational psychologists, sociologists, and engineers looking at the hundreds of work teams that Google had. And with these hundreds of work groups, for more than a year, they looked at things like socialization, the personalities, with various personality tests. They looked at hobbies that people had. They looked at the levels of education. They looked at skills. They looked at gender balance. I presume, but they didn't necessarily say, that they maybe looked at racial balance and that kind of thing, and those all the different demographics, that the age. They also looked at leadership approach and the hierarchy of the pattern of the hierarchy of the organizations, whether it was a informal group or whether there was clearly a leader and that everybody followed within that organization. And they found, in analyzing the data, that there were no clear patterns that came through. And that was astounding to them, because they thought with all of this data, they would have a clear pattern that indicated to them which was the right way to go, which was the right leadership style, which was the right gender balance, which was the right personality mix, which was the right education level, of all of those things. But they found no clear patterns that indicated effectiveness. And so what I'd like to ask of you is to type in the chat box to see what you have found has helped in engaging people in food safety initiatives in your workplace. So, because I'd like to see if we can get an idea of what might be working in some food companies.
Okay, let's have a look. Food safety meetings, Leanne Hefferman.
Okay, so food safety meetings.
Yeah. Including them in program writing. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. That was Elaine. Odette, building relationships. Rajesh, rewarding. Daily production meetings, Susil. Make it real, Nicole. Relating to people as consumers. And Hammer, that's a good one. Toolbox talks, David. Management commitment, involvement, a lot of involvement there. Training, involvement, compliance checks with scoring, education. Wow, there's so many comments, it's hard to keep up with them.
Yes, okay, well, that's good, that's nice. Okay, so what I'm hearing is it's that involvement in program writing, involvement in things. It's a building of relationships.
Yeah.
That's and some examples of specifics of what was having huddles and those kinds of things.
Yeah, that came along quite strongly. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Great. Okay. And now, what I'd like to ask you, differently from that, but similarly, is what's the main challenge you have faced in engaging people in food safety initiatives in your workplace?
Somebody did say before there's a direct correlation between senior management commitment and involvement and culture, positive culture development, engagement. Let's have a look. So now we're looking for the main challenges.
The main challenges, yes.
Lack of understanding of the consequences. Department silos, that's a good one, rather than looking at the process. No senior management commitment. Too many goals. Changing old habits. Time. Lack of communication. Obtaining buy-in after years of experience in the field. Hard to accept change for associates. Lack of senior management commitment. Wrong people in the wrong positions. Yeah. Resistance to change, lack of resources, maintaining the standards over the long term, too much focus on the production versus food safety trade-offs, resistance, language barriers.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, so we've got a mix of things in here, and I did hear things about lack of communication, resistance to change, and department silos, and versus focusing on the process. So these are all a lot of people will have different challenges, and so I really appreciate the people sharing their thoughts about what the challenges are in their organizations. What I wanted to go back to then was to what Google found. And Google found that among all of the work teams, didn't matter what all the other things, the socialization, the leadership approach, the hierarchy, anything like that, what mattered most in the work teams that were most effective was that they had a climate that was safe for interpersonal risk-taking. And what that means is that they found that when there were people within those work teams that they were taking turns to be able to provide input and share their ideas, that was a key element of this psychological safety. And so was empathy, actually caring about the people that you're working with. And when I think about companies that say we have a family-oriented focus and it feels like family when we're working here, Now, they mean family in a good sense as opposed to family in an abusive situation. But it feels like when they go to work, it feels like they're in a very safe place with a positive family situation. And that's really what Google found in this psychological safety element aspect of it. And so that is what people have found makes the difference in their ability of these work teams to move forward. And we go back to that TQM article. And what was it is that the employees no longer felt engaged. So what was it that was preventing those employees from feeling engaged? We don't know the answer to that, but it may be that they weren't involved anymore, and so there weren't any conversations happening, and they weren't focusing on the people who were contributing to the end result that they wanted. And so then in putting that more into perspective of food safety, we want to think about how it is that we could potentially increase the psychological safety of people who are being asked to be involved in and implement food safety programs or initiatives. And the reason it makes sense, and this is where I'm going to talk about the neuroscience of things, we found in neuroscience is that there are particular things that are happening in the brain that influence how people can respond and react to situations. So when people are the key, there are other parts of the brain, but I'm really focusing on two parts that we're looking at here. Is the amygdala, the primitive brain, and you've probably heard of the fight, flight, and freeze kind of thing, and that's where that's where the fear kicks in. So that's the primitive brain, and we're programmed to be afraid of things because we don't know if there's going to be a saber-toothed tiger coming after us and going to get us. So that's the being distrustful. And so when we're in a distrustful state or a fear state, then the hormones that kick in are cortisol and testosterone and some other ones too. But those are the key ones, and those are stress-related hormone. Cortisol is stress-related hormone, and testosterone will increase the fight, it will increase our desire to fight and make sure that we're going to be kept safe. So that's the fighting side of things. And this kicks in pretty quickly. This is the first part that will kick in. So we are programmed, first of all, to be distrustful. And then if we can override that, then allow the prefrontal cortex or the executive brain kick in, then it kicks in a little bit later. Then we can say, wait a minute, I don't have to be fearful of this situation. I can actually trust this situation because I've been in it before, because there are certain things that are okay so I think I can trust this situation. And what happens in this psychological safety situation, these work units where people feel confident and comfortable and they trust the people around them, is that they've got what I call feel-good hormones: oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin. These are the hormones that help with bonding. Oxytocin helps with bonding. The dopamine provides positive thoughts. It gives a positive feeling. And when we're dealing with people, it'll give a positive feeling of interactions with people. So these are feel good, become more talkative, more excited, more willing to share because we're in a trusting situation and we have that psychological safety. And so if we're working in, whether it's a food safety team or any kind of a team or a work group, when people within that unit have trust the people around them, and they have this psychological safety, the sense of psychological safety, then they will be inclined to do things differently than if they're in the distrust fear area and they've got a lot of stress and cortisol flying through their system. And so these are the kinds of things that we want to try to avoid the distrust and fear happening. And so if people are shouting and yelling at others, then that creates a fear. And when people are in fear, they're not going to participate. They're not going to want to be engaged because they don't want to open themselves up to being harmed in any way. And by increasing that trust then we can give people an opportunity to share their information and know that they won't be discredited or put down because of what it is that they've contributed. And so that's what we can move forward with. So one of the things in the work that I've been doing in conversational intelligence in a coaching initiative is that we want to downregulate some of the things that contribute to the distrust, that contribute to turf protection mindset. So we want to downregulate things where we might be excluding people or judging people or limiting their participation or ideas or withholding information or saying that we know best or dictating what it is that we want people to do or criticizing people for what it is that they're doing. We want to downregulate those kinds of behaviors and that kind of talk if we want to get people out of the fear state and move them towards the trust state where they're willing to take risks and they're willing to participate and they're willing to engage in what it is that we're asking them to engage in. And so we want to upregulate then being inclusive and appreciating people and helping them to expand what it is that they're talking about, and having them, allowing people to share information, allowing people to discover new ways of doing things and to share their ideas about how we might do things differently, and allowing the upregulating things that would allow them to develop their skills and their abilities, and allow them to develop new ideas and share new ideas with that, and then celebrate success. And even if it's about celebrating what it is that they've done correctly. So if we've given them a task to do, they've got new information, they've just finished a training, they got new information, it's a more effective training to catch them doing something right and praise them for doing something right than it is for you to criticize them for doing something wrong. Because if people are focused on being criticized, they won't want to try because they don't want to be criticized because you're in that sense of fear. So what we're finding is to engage people, to help them to change their ways of doing things to be more engaged and more committed. If we can upregulate the turn-taking mindset, upregulate the positive side of things, that can help us to improve our food safety initiative, improve the implementation of the food safety initiative, and then in the longer term, improve the food safety culture. So, and one of the ways that we do these things, the upregulating things, is to change how we converse with others. So in coaching, we talk about 3 levels of conversations. Level 1 is the tell and ask level, where we maybe ask, if we're asking questions, we're asking closed-ended questions, or because we have an answer that's the correct answer and we want people to get the correct answer, or we're telling them how to do things. And it's appropriate in certain types of situations. So if I'm in an emergency situation, and if I'm working on a fire, if I'm working in a fire brigade, the chief of the fire brigade needs to be telling people, do this, do that, do something else, and then we go and do that. And then we use our skills to move forward and make sure that we're doing the proper firefighting techniques and things, but that we've been directed to do things. So the tell-ask has a place. But when we want to engage people and have them committed things, then the telling and asking about food safety, for example, and telling people you need to do this for food safety, that might not be the best way to do it. There may be a better way if we focus on opening up or upregulating their emotional side of things, so that they feel that they're asked questions, they're actually involved in the processes that are going on. So we may be building consensus, or we're actually asking about things. We're asking them questions that allow them to have input and feedback. So we might say, so why did you do it this way? Instead of saying, don't do it that way, do it this way, we can ask them, why did you do it this way? and then allow them to give the answer and say, okay, thank you for that information. When we do it in another way, and you explain the correct way to do it, this is what happens. And when it's done this way, this helps it, and then you can then explain that it helps in the bigger picture and how it makes a difference to the food safety or whatever it is you're talking about. And the level 3 conversations are conversations that we talk about when we talk about transformation. And those are the conversations where we're actually asking people, so how might we be able to make this happen more easily for you so that it's easier for you to do the practice correctly? What is it that's preventing you from following the procedures? And then we're asking them, getting them to share the information with us, and together we can come up with new ideas and a new approach to doing things instead of dictating to them what it is that they need to be doing and not listening that maybe there's a good reason why they didn't do it the way that we thought they should be doing it. So those are the kinds of things that we talk about in a coaching, is we try to get to the level 3 conversation, where we really say is transformational change. We can look at transformational change in that case. And so what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask you another question, and ask what you might do differently in your workplace to create more trust and encourage input from others.
Okay, we'll try and capture those. You can type in the sidebar. What might you do, or what have you done to create more trust and encourage input? Be transparent, Tarina. Active listening, Jenny. I'm expecting a flood. No.
Yeah, so those are good. Yeah, absolutely. Being transparent. Yeah, that active listening.
Mm-hmm. Ask more questions. Get employees involved. Do not shout. Positive feedback. A few positive feedbacks. Be inclusive. Better communication. Positive reinforcement.
Yes, absolutely.
Conducting audits with us. Involvement, obviously.
Yes, that's right. That's a good way, because that way you're sharing information. You're helping people to see what it is that you're looking at in the audits, so that they can see, and that gives them a higher level of knowledge about what those audits are about. And so it's not somebody telling, well, we need to do this, we need to do this. It actually helps them to be able to use their own critical thinking skills to say, oh, so this is the kind of thing you're looking for in an audit. Okay, so when you're looking for this, then you know what? You're looking for that. Then I know that there are other places where in my work unit that this is happening, and I think we can change things in my work unit, because, and it can, those kinds of things can happen by engaging people and asking questions.
Yeah, and there was another good one, listening and then acting quickly on suggestions or concerns.
Absolutely. So acting quickly on those suggestions and concerns will help to show people that you are listening, that you're listening to what it is that they're saying. And it's not always possible to do exactly what it is that they suggest, but it's really important to follow through and say, okay, so what are the things that we are able to do? What are the things that we need to do more research on? What are the things that we're not able to do? And for what reason are we not able to do those? Because if a suggestion comes forward and people aren't given a comprehensive response, if it's not taken, if the suggestion isn't followed through on exactly, if people aren't given a comprehensive response about why it's not possible, or what makes it not going to happen right away, that we're working on it, we maybe need more research, then they think that they're not being heard. And then if that happens enough, then they're going to stop talking. They're going
Yeah.
to say nobody cares. People don't care here, and that's not what you want. You really want to have that active listening. When you're asking questions or giving people a chance to ask questions, you're wanting to have, you're wanting to give people that have them engaged, and give them the opportunity to make suggestions and show that you're listening and follow through on that. Because if you are in fact listening, then you're gonna be able to respond in some way.
Okay, yeah. And another important one was giving them the why, the context, the understanding of why they're doing things, because often it's how you must do this, follow this procedure, but understanding why that's important.
Absolutely, and it's that added information comes back to that upregulating of sharing information, so that and believing that the people that you're speaking to have a level of knowledge that they're able to think critically. And if you can engage them, then you can tap into their thinking skills that would be able to help the organization in the longer term. There are a lot of people that even though they have different languages, some people are working in food plants and in factories and elsewhere. The reason they're there is because their language skills aren't good enough to get a job at the level where they would be if they were in their home country, if they're immigrants. And so there are some highly skilled people that may be working on a line simply because their language skills aren't that good. Go ahead, Simon, you were going to say something? Are you there? I think I may have lost audio. So I'm not sure I think that I could continue. So I could continue speaking, but I can't hear Simon. Are we still there?
Yes.
There
Sorry.
we are. Okay, there we are, Simon. I hear you again.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you again.
Just one thing. In my experience, I find that almost all organizations have negative measures, such as, for example, our defect rate is 2%, and our target is to get it down to 1%, or even on let's say a BRC audit or something like that.
Oh, I just lost you again. Just after the BRC audit, your audio went out.
Always, to me, talking about we've got 98% good. How do we get to 100? We've got 495 clauses out of the 500 BRC on target. How do we get? So you're striving upwards rather than always driving down, and that negative feeling about not recognizing how good you are and that you just need to improve a little bit more. It's always the opposite in a lot of organizations.
Yeah, yes, that's right, and that can have an impact, and I know even when I was a kid and when I was got a test result back and I had 99% or something, some high level in some math or something or other, I forget what it was, and so I came home and I said, oh look, Mom, I got this this really great score, and she said, so what happened to the other whatever percent it was, and it deflated me. And I remember that being deflated by that. And she could have said, and just, and she did the best she could, right? So she might have been looking at it as a way to say, well, okay, I mean, that's great, but maybe I could motivate her more if I said this.
Yeah.
And, but at that particular moment when I was excited, it was more, it felt negative. It felt like she wasn't listening to how excited I was. And so how we respond to people can influence how it is that they will respond to us the next time. So whether maybe I don't know my reaction after that, but maybe I wouldn't have been so inclined to want to share a good grade that because I knew that I'd done well and I didn't want to be criticized. I mean, as a young kid, little things can really influence you. But even as adults, especially if you've grown up in situations where you've had negative negative talk, that kind of thing. It can influence you, because especially if you're unsure of yourself. Mm-hmm. And so people who are unsure of themselves are less able to be resilient to negative feedback than those who are confident about themselves and about where they're going.
So accentuate the positive.
Yes, that really helps. Absolutely. And I don't want to take away from the importance of following up when there is something negative, when there is something that needs to be corrected. We still need to correct it, but there are ways to correct it that focus on the positive, and we can work with the people to correct things instead of being critical about the situation. And so that's where we're talking about shifting them from the fear-based situation into the trust-based situation, and helping them to move forward in being in that psychological safety. So when they're being acknowledged, when their excitement is acknowledged, when the positive things are acknowledged, they're going to feel safer than when they're in fear. So when they're safer, they're going to be more resilient later on. And so it will happen so that if we have a positive things happening, and there are sometimes negative things, the negative things won't affect them as strongly as if it's negative. Mm-hmm. And then it's a little bit of positive isn't enough to compensate for that negative. But if we have lots of positive psychological safety, then we have a lot of that. Then a little bit of negative isn't going to drag them down into the fear. It's going to keep them into that trust space, and that mental state, the mental state of being trustful, is what will encourage more input from others and more feedback and those kinds of things. So the comments about not shouting and being inclusive and listening, those are absolutely excellent. Those are the kinds of things that we need to focus on. And when we're listening, going back to I think it was the listening, the conversations, the listening to connect is what is going to help to engage people in their conversations. And so instead of saying, "You don't get it, do you?" you say, if you had the answer, how might you approach it? Or instead of saying, "What in the world were you thinking?" you can say, "Share some thoughts. I'd love to know what you were thinking about when you were doing it that way." Mm-hmm. So those kinds of things are just a little bit. You're still going to get the similar. You're still asking something that's the same, but you're asking it in a different way. So then asking open-ended questions, and so you're not judging, you're not rejecting, you're listening to the person, and you're focusing on them and what it is that they're saying, and it's listening to understand where they're coming from. What are they thinking? What are they trying to say? What are they hoping that what would help them to explore more and be able to move forward with the work that it is that, because with the work that it is that you'd like to do, because the work that you'd like to do, if you ask them and are open in communications, then that can help them to support you in the work that you need to get done in your organization. So then I'd like to then just as a brief overview, then we want to talk about, it's a little bit different than conversations, but it relates to change. And what we talked about a little bit relates to change, because I talked about the fear and how in our mindset of trusting, that let me just get that slide up again. It's back here, this one right here. So this the amygdala, the primitive brain, that'll kick in pretty quickly in 0.07 seconds or something along those lines. And we're sort of programmed to do that. So we're programmed to say, "Oh, I don't like that. What's going on?" before we kick in the executive brain that will override that. And and so when we've got change initiatives in our organizations, when we've got a new program that's coming down, when we've got some things that we need to change to improve food safety or quality or something like that, we need to take some steps to move forward and have those things implemented. And so the first thing that needs to happen in Lewin's 3 stages of change, we need to unfreeze the old habits. We need to implement the change. We have practiced the habits, and then we refreeze with the new habits that we've got, that we've developed through there. So the unfreezing part is where the organization creates readiness and motivation for change. And so in doing that, what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to show a need for change. So if we say, well, all right, FSMA has happened, and now we need to move forward because we need to be compliant with FSMA. And there's urgency about that because FSMA is like on top of us. And what, Safe Food for Canadians Act, and maybe some new regulations in Europe and some other the countries that all the people that are represented here, we show that there's a need for change. And if we can create a little bit of anxiety, not fear about being criticized, but a little bit of anxiety about the situation that we've actually got to move now, so that people are actually going to realize that the change has to happen. And then we also create in that state psychological safety in the change. Then that will help us to implement the change more effectively. So that psychological safety that we're talking about is that communicating effectively, that open listening, that listening to connect, that asking questions that are allowing people to share, that are allowing people to provide input. And it may take a little bit of time to do that. If your organization has been used to doing the tell, yell kind of thing, or being dictating how things are going to be done, then it may take some time to generate that psychological safety in communication. And once that's happened, we can unfreeze the old stuff. We prepare people for change. Then the change processes that we have in place, and there are, Cotter has 8 stages of the processes to change, and these are the kinds of things that we move forward within these the actual changing things that are happening. And this is when people are mentally perceiving a value in the change that's coming forward, and they're acting differently. They're being asked to act differently. They're participating in acting differently and coming up with new ways of acting differently. They're identifying with and taking a new perspective with respect to that the requirements that are coming down to meet FSMA or whatever the regulations are. They're able and open to check for new information, and they're adapting to the new ways of doing things. And as they're doing that through that process, when we see the wins and we're celebrating and those kinds of things, then we move into the refreeze where people are actually integrating the change and they're keeping it going. And this is done at a personal and individual level, and also at an interpersonal level. And that's where we keep things moving towards, and then we can keep people, allow them to still keep participating and sharing their ideas, and moving towards that. Well, actually, because we're now in that new state, to maintain that state. So we go back to the very beginning slide where I showed that one about TQM wasn't sustainable because the employees were no longer being asked to be kept engaged in that. And so when we're going to refreeze, we're refreezing to the new state where we're involving people and we're keeping them involved. And in keeping them involved, then that's going to become part of the culture. And when it's part of the culture, that's what makes it sustainable. And that's what the refreezing is all about. So these are the sort of a simplified format of Lewin's 3 stages of change. and how it relates back to the communication and effective communication in whenever it is that we're trying to implement, whether it's a new food safety program or a new quality plant program or new anything kind of a initiative. These are the kinds of stages that are going to go through. And if you've got effective communication, you'll be able to engage people more and have them involved and feeling positive about where they're moving and what's happening with the organization. So then we're just coming to the end of the presentation, and I'd like to now ask you, do this poll again and say, how confident are you now in your ability to support engagement and commitment to food safety? And so if Simon, you can upload that poll, that would be great.
Yep, I've done that.
Okay. Oh, there, I see I have to click on polls.
Yeah, so click on the polls tab if it doesn't show. Let's see. Any change? We're hoping for a sort of a budging up. Yeah. I think you've managed to shift them a bit.
Shift them a bit, yes.
Yeah, I think so, Britta. Yeah. We were up at we was averaging sort of 7, and we're up at the 8. And so, yes, definitely. So you've increased confidence there with some great tips and tools of how to build that trust and engagement.
Yes, well, that's excellent. Yeah, so the number 8, 8 is higher, and 9 is I think 10 is higher. So this is great. Absolutely. 5 is higher. Five now. There's 0, and okay. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Look at that. So now there are zeros into the 5s. Up to 5 is 0, and there were numbers earlier. And so absolutely, some people have improved their confidence in their ability to move forward. And so I've given you some information that will be able to help you. And in this kind of thing, it's not a knowledge based; it's a skill based. It's something like you're not going to teach somebody to ride a bike at a seminar. So you're not going to, I'm not going to be able to teach you to be able to improve your communication skills at a webinar, but I've given you some information that will help you to move forward hopefully to move forward in what it is that you can do differently in your organization. And so what I would like to do now is to ask you, what will you do as a result of this webinar? Because you've got the knowledge, and you're going to have some skills that you're going to need. You're going to have to develop some skills and practice in order to implement some of this kind of stuff. If it's new to you, that you'll need to practice it to implement it. And then what support you need to do that? Oh, I don't have on here. How soon will you be able to start moving forward with this kind of thing? So then you can type that in the chat box.
Yeah, type it in. Anyway, great job, Britta. Fantastic. And just while they're typing in, you're in the process of writing a book. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. I've received it. I just signed a contract with Springer Publishing. That's the same book, the same company that published Frank Yanis's 2 books on food safety culture. And so I've signed a contract to write that book called Beyond Management Commitment, and it's going to be about lessons learned from companies who are advancing their food safety culture. So that will involve me doing some research, phoning up some companies, doing some interviews, then analyzing the data and putting that into the areas where, in different areas, so communications and teamwork and leadership and those kinds of things will be part of this book. So I'm looking forward to that.
Okay, and so when's that due roughly to be published?
Oh, so it'll be the publisher's given me a year to submit the manuscript, so hopefully I can get it sooner than that. So I anticipate then it will be out in early 2019 or late 2018.
Right. And so hopefully then around that time you'll come on and share some of the nuggets from that book.
Yes, absolutely. I'd
Brilliant.
love to do that.
Okay, let's pick up in the sidebar then. Vicky, share the webinar with plant supervisors and managers. Great.
Wonderful.
Need management to get involved. Practice level 2 conversation. All I need is get into that habit. So if you've got that in mind, yes, to get into that habit, be more open in communicating goals of the food safety management system, make the process of it inclusive, train frontline managers on how to execute some of the ideas.
Wonderful.
Be more
Excellent ideas.
yeah. Define positive objectives. Yeah, great, Lupita. Thanks, Britta. Nice recap of managing change, which can let us focus our efforts. That was Declan Blanchfield. Tarina, immediately, and I have great support system to get us through the bumps in the road or individuals not confident in their food safety buy-in. Engage employees on an individual basis. Yes, some
Right, that
fantastic.
creating change bottom up instead of top down. Yes, excellent. Oh wait, that has not worked. Bottom up instead of top down has not worked. It actually has to happen both ways because that has to both ways. Top down and bottom up.
Yeah. Bruce, be the role model and value your people for the good work being done. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I can't reiterate that enough. I mean, if 98% of what you do is good and 2% is bad, really, managers tend to accept the 98% being just standard, bog standard. There's a hell of a lot of work goes into getting that 98% right. So focus a lot on that.
Yes.
And yeah.
That's right. Celebrate success. Celebrate success and where it's due. And then reward good behavior. I saw somebody else say that. Bruce Johnson, recognize and reward good behavior. Yes, absolutely. Those are the kinds of things we can do to basically, in some way or other, what we're trying to do in this, or what we will end up doing in this, is creating a positive work environment, creating that psychological safety. And by creating psychological safety, that will increase participation and engagement and commitment among the people in the organization.
Yeah, and to be company wide, if it's got to be a company culture, I suppose all the managers and heads and chiefs and supervisors need to be acting in the same way as much as possible.
That's correct. Yeah, it would be ideal if that's the case. But even if it's not, you can start in a one work unit.
Yeah.
It can start in one work unit, and then people will want to shift to that work unit. People,
true.
I read somewhere that people don't quit a job because of the job. They quit the job or not. This is percentage wise. They quit the job because of the manager, not because of the job. Or they quit the job more often because of the manager or who their boss is, more than they quit the job.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I mean, we have run up to the hour, but what we'll do is I'll issue the certificate in the sidebar and this is a new method of doing it. But are you happy to stay for 5 or 10 minutes if there's any questions?
Yes, I can do that. Yeah. And I can just let people know that if they feel that they need that they would like some coaching or some consulting in this field, then I'd be happy to talk to them and their supervisor, their director of food safety or quality assurance or whatever, or possibly their chief learning officer. We can move forward and talk about how I'd be able to support and coach. I do coaching of coaches. I do training of trainers, and I help organizations improve their food safety performance by doing that.
Perfect. Yeah. Right. Yeah. If you want to stop sharing your slides now, Britta, and then we'll come on webcam, and we'll see if there's any questions. If you look in the sidebar, ladies and gents, if it's not popped up automatically under the file icon, which is third from the bottom, file sharing, there should be the certificate of attendance that you can just click the blue download file button and grab it. Right. So, any questions for Britta while we have her here? Just praise at the moment. You always do a great job. Someone said, can't wait to read your book.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed that presentation. I think it's the key. One of the main keys to food safety is that everybody on board and engaged and committed, and treating people as human beings and everything that they need just really helps. It's a PNG, Dal. I can't open this file type. I don't know why. Any questions?
Oh, PNG is a picture, and if it's a JPEG, it may be easier for people to open.
Right. Well, it was a PNG because somebody said last time it was a GIF, so I put it as a PNG because the quality is normally better. Oh, here we go. Kenley, what is the biggest challenge you have found in the implementation of food safety? So that I think asking you, Britta, what's been your biggest challenge?
Well, I focus on the people side of food safety. I focus on that aspect, and so there may be barriers, various other barriers, but really where it is that I'm focusing, I help companies improve the people side of food safety and quality assurance. So that's really where it is that I focus. So I wouldn't necessarily find areas of where the technical side is lacking.
Yeah.
And it really is about improving it. Where I focus is improving the conversations in the organization.
Okay. Anybody else with a question for Britta? Otherwise, you'll have to contact her and pay for her services if you have that one question that you want to ask now. Or no, you don't get your name on the certificate, Kenley. You have to print it and sign it yourself. I can't make 1,500 certificates, I'm afraid, especially seeing as it's free. Right. Well, that's it, Britta. Right, Rajesh, do you have a different approach in handling upper management versus operators?
Okay, so it's important that when we're speaking to operators, we speak in a language that they understand, and that's more. And when we speak to our bosses or our senior managers, we speak in the language that they understand. So at a higher level in an organization, what it is that they're focusing more on the bigger picture. They aren't focusing only on food safety. They're focusing on this risk management, that risk management, operations, making sure that their product is going out the door. They're focusing on a whole lot of things. So when we speak to upper management, we need to put things in a way that makes sense to them. So we need to speak to them in a way that it connects to the business side of things, rather than, for example, focusing on the technical food safety aspect. If I'm talking to an operator, I'm not going to talk about the business side of things. I might want to talk to an operator. I might want to talk about what might be meaningful to them and how they can understand better how the purpose that they have, the important role that they play in the job that they have in the operation.
Yeah.
Everybody, generally, everybody, I'm saying everybody, but maybe there are some people that don't feel this way. But generally speaking, people want to feel that they are making a contribution to something bigger than them. And so if they understand the purpose of their job, not that they're putting caps on a bottle or running the line that puts the caps on the bottle, but the job that they have is protecting the food for the consumer so that it helps the consumer in the end be safe or something. It's a bigger perspective. It's a bigger reason for them to go to work in the morning. The example I like to give is there's somebody, the classic sort of a story where somebody was going by, walking there, he saw some workers, you know, at a construction site. And so he talked to one guy and he said, "So what are you doing?" He says, "I'm stacking bricks. I'm placing bricks to," and so he was, you know, doing the cement and putting the bricks down, more cement, putting the bricks down. And he went to the next guy. He said, "So what is it that you're doing?" And the guy says, "Oh, I'm building a wall." So his purpose was to build the wall. He wasn't stacking bricks. He was building a wall. And then the third person he came to, he said, "So what is it that you're doing?" Well, it really was the same thing that the other two were doing. But this guy didn't say stacking bricks or building a wall. He said, "I'm building a cathedral." So he had a bigger purpose for his task. The task was the same, but he understood the bigger picture of his role in what it was that he was doing. He had a really important role in building that cathedral. And so if we can bring that kind of purposefulness, if I can use that as a word, to the operations level and help them understand the bigger picture that they have a really important part in, that can help to give them meaning in their tasks, and they can put meaning in their tasks that they might have never really realized before.
Yeah, good, excellent. Yeah, Christine, any books that you can recommend right now?
So books in what the book that I would recommend is Conversational Intelligence.
Conversational Intelligence.
Conversational Intelligence. It's a book. It's a book by Judith Glaser, Glaser, and she's an executive coach, and I've been taking training with her to improve my coaching skills. So that would be the book I would recommend. Conversational Intelligence by Judith E. Glaser.
Rightio, good. Let's have a look. Rajesh is saying, should you share the company goals as well as, or just the department goals?
Well, so during an audit is very specific. So I'm not understanding. So what it is that the person doing, I'm not understanding who's sharing what.
I think, let's say a line operator, obviously the department in which they work, that silo will have some goals, but there'll be obviously company-wide business goals and strategies. I suppose it doesn't harm for them to understand where the company's going, the direction, what the company's trying to achieve, and etc. as well.
Yeah, and I suppose it depends on who is being asked in that audit, and what type of information the auditor is looking for. So different auditors would have different ideas. So I can't really give you a clear answer on that with respect to audits. If they explain the departmental goals, that would be likely more than many people would have during the audit.
Okay. Right. I think, Dimitri is just asking, when you said about people leaving, they don't leave. Can you just
okay.
So, please?
So when people leave a company, they will often not be leaving their job. They will be leaving their manager because they don't have a good fit with their boss.
Right.
That's often more often the reason that they leave. Let me rephrase that. They more often leave a job for their manager, because of their manager, and not working with their manager, than they do because they don't like the job.
Okay, that's clear.
People will stay in a job that they don't like because they have a great boss.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good way.
If you have a great work unit and you love the people that you're working with, you will stay in that job even though you know that you could go to another company down the road and get more money, but you don't know what the culture is going to be like. You don't know what the people are going to be like, and you know that you're happy in that job and you'll stay there. That's what keeps people in companies, even though they could go somewhere else for higher money.
So that's a good way to end it, because any senior managers watching this, it makes good business sense to treat your employees well, because they'll give back in spades, won't they?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, they feel part of the organization, part of the family-ish, the organization's family. They'll contribute greatly.
Okay, brilliant. Right then, good way to end it. We've gone 15 minutes over, but I don't care. I know we had some problems at the beginning. My audio, my internet connection was terrible. I'll have to look back on the recording. I might have to do a bit of editing. But Britta, great presentation, some fantastic information. It's great to have you here again. Good luck with the research for the book, and can't wait to have you back on. So thanks, Britta.
Great. Thank you very much. Right.
Okay. Right. See you soon.
Bye.
Ladies and gents, it is basically the end now. We've got next week Yasser Mohammed, and he's going to be talking about, I'm going to load it in the sidebar actually. Where are we? It's all new, this. There we go. It's this system, it's the latest version that we had to move to. And there is Yasser Mohammed in the sidebar, how to manage food safety, quality and food safety incidents. So he's got a model, I think it's PRIMP. So he's going to be talking about that next Friday. So register now or follow up with the emails that we send. Happy Friday, best day of the week. Absorb this over the weekend, get back in on Monday, and set to work on engaging with your employees and lifting the culture and the spirit of your organization, and get your senior management to watch this. Okay. See you soon, ladies and gents. Have a nice weekend. Bye.